The valet's gloved hand reached for my keys, but I didn't move. For a moment, I just sat behind the wheel, watching my breath fog the windshield and the golden glow spilling from the restaurant's tall windows. Inside, I could see silhouettes swirling under chandeliers, laughter rippling out each time the door opened for another late-arriving guest. It was supposed to be a night for family. My family. A navy dress clung to me like borrowed confidence, and the heels pinching my toes were brand new, still stiff from the box. I'd done everything right tonight. Hair swept into soft waves, a gift wrapped in gold ribbon on the passenger seat, an invitation printed on paper so thick it could have been carved from stone. James and Patricia Morrison request the pleasure of your company as we celebrate 30 years of marriage. I'd read that line until I knew it by heart. The valet cleared his throat. Miss. I forced a smile, stepped out, and crossed the marble steps as if I belonged there. Inside, everything smelled faintly of citrus and candle wax. Crystal stemware glittered in rows behind the bar. A pianist floated through a soft jazz standard that felt older than the city itself. At the hostess stand, I held out my invitation like a passport. Rachel Morrison. I'm here for the anniversary dinner. Her polite smile faltered as she scanned the list. A second glance. A frown. Fingers tapping across the page as if my name might magically appear if she looked hard enough. I'm so sorry, she said finally, voice barely above a whisper. You're not listed. Not listed. 2 words that dropped like stones in my chest. There must be a mistake, I said, sliding the embossed card closer to her. This is tonight. 7 sharp. She glanced at the invitation, then back to her ledger. The instructions were very specific about the number of seats. Would you like me to check with the hosts? Before I could answer, a burst of laughter echoed from the dining room beyond the archway. I didn't need to look, but I did. My parents were easy to spot. Dad's silver hair catching the light, Mom's emerald dress unmistakable. Around their table, wine glasses glinted, and familiar faces leaned in close. My brother, my sister, cousins, even the neighbors from across the street. Every chair filled. Every chair but mine. I stood frozen, gift clutched against my chest, until my mother's gaze swept across the room and landed on me. For the briefest second, her expression flickered, recognition, then dismissal, before she turned deliberately back to her glass, laughing at something I couldn't hear. The hostess asked softly, "Should I let them know you're here?" My throat burned, but I shook my head. "No," I said. "They already know." Then I walked past the archway, every step echoing like a drumbeat, toward a celebration I was never meant to see. The dining room was a theater, and every head turned as I crossed the polished floor. My heels clicked like a metronome, marking time until the moment I would reach them. I'd imagined this night so many times, sitting between Melissa and Connor, toasting our parents with easy laughter. But now the scene felt like someone else's life, staged for an audience where I didn't belong. Mom saw me first, her smile faltering mid-laugh. Dad didn't even look up until I was standing at the edge of the table. 12 place settings gleamed in perfect symmetry, white napkins folded like swans. My gift, a crystal vase I'd hunted down weeks ago, suddenly felt absurdly heavy in my hands. "Rachel," Mom said at last, her voice honeyed and tight. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" I repeated, forcing a lightness I didn't feel. "I'm here because you invited me. Remember this." I held up the thick ivory card, my name written in her familiar looping script. Dad's eyes barely flicked up from his plate. "Sweetheart, we explained this was going to be very intimate." I glanced around the table. Melissa, flawless as always, looked down at her water glass. Connor smirked into his wine, enjoying the show. Aunts, uncles, family friends, all silent, all complicit. "I am intimate family," I said quietly. Or at least I thought I was. Mom exhaled as if I were an unruly child disrupting church service. "Darling, this dinner is for people who share our values. We sent you the invitation because it felt polite." Polite? My laugh came out sharp, startling even me. You invited me just to make sure I knew I wasn't welcome? A cousin at the far end shifted uncomfortably. I thought it was family only, she murmured. Her mother hushed her quickly, but it was too late. Dad set his fork down, irritation flashing across his face. Rachel, you're making a scene. We can talk about this later. I felt the room tilt. A scene? No, this was the scene. They'd scripted it perfectly. The dutiful daughter arrives, gets turned away, leaves humiliated. I was only playing the role they'd cast for me. I steadied my voice. Let me get this straight. Melissa's children belong. Connor's girlfriend belongs. Your neighbors belong. But your daughter, the one who calls every week, who planned Dad's surprise party last year, doesn't. Mom's smile turned brittle. You chose your own path, Rachel. The city, the career, the lifestyle. You've grown distant. Tonight is about people who understand tradition. Tradition. That was the word they always used when what they meant was control. I placed the crystal vase on the linen tablecloth. It caught the light, scattering fragments of color over their perfect plates. Happy anniversary, I said, my voice steady now. I hope excluding me made it unforgettable. No one spoke. Not a word. Not even Melissa, who wouldn't meet my eyes. I turned and walked out, but this time I wasn't walking away empty-handed. I was leaving with something far sharper than a vase, the truth, and I knew exactly what to do with it. The night air hit like ice when I stepped outside, but the heat burning in my chest was worse. I walked past the valet without looking at him, clutching my empty hands as if they still held the crystal vase. My heels clicked on the pavement until I reached my car. Then I stopped, gripping the roof to steady myself. Humiliation had a taste. Sharp, metallic, bitter on the back of my tongue. For a moment I wanted to scream, to cry, to drive until the city lights blurred into black highway. But another voice pushed through the noise. Not this time. Not quietly. Not again. I slid into the driver's seat and just sat there, staring through the windshield at the restaurant's glowing windows. My parents were probably laughing already, brushing off my outburst, telling everyone how sensitive I'd become since moving to Portland. They'd rewrite the story before dessert was even served. I remembered the guest list I'd seen weeks ago while helping Dad with insurance papers. My name written neatly in ink, then crossed out in bold red. I'd snapped a photo without thinking, a habit I developed after years of feeling forgotten. At the time, I'd told myself it didn't matter. But now, it was proof. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Maya's number. My best friend picked up on the first ring. Ratch? It's late. What's wrong? They did it, I said, my voice shaking but cold now. They invited me to humiliate me. Told the restaurant I wasn't on the list. Silence. Then Maya's voice sharpened. That's sick. Who does that to their own kid? People who think no one will ever call them out. I swallowed hard. But they're wrong. Maya didn't hesitate. What do you need? As I explained, the words formed faster than I expected. Like the plan had been waiting inside me all along. My work in marketing and event planning had built a network my parents knew nothing about. I had colleagues who ran blogs, reporters who covered society gossip, restaurant managers who'd seen it all. And I had a story people would not ignore. By the time I hung up, another call was already dialing. David, a local blogger with a wide audience, answered groggily. Rachel? What's up? I have a piece for you, I said. Small-town family politics, public humiliation, receipts included. You'll want this one. He didn't even ask for details before agreeing to meet in the morning. I sat there in the dark, phone still warm in my hand, and something shifted inside me. The girl who had spent years smoothing things over, begging for a seat at the table, was gone. In her place was someone who finally understood. Belonging isn't something you earn from people who never wanted you there. Through the restaurant window, I caught one last glimpse of emerald silk and champagne light. My parents thought they'd buried me under shame. All they'd done was light the match. The next morning, Portland was gray and rain-slicked, a perfect match for the weight pressing on my chest. But beneath the ache was something sharper, resolve. I spent hours drafting my piece with David over black coffee in a quiet corner cafe. Every word cut close to the bone. The handwritten invitation, the hostess turning me away, my mother's cool dismissal, my father's smug, we had to choose who really belongs. David read in silence, then looked up. Rachel, this isn't just a family squabble. This is cruelty. People are going to feel this. Good, I said, surprising myself with the calm in my own voice. They should. That night, the article went live on Portland Perspectives. The dinner with no seat. When family turns love into leverage. We paired it with screenshots of the invitation and the photo of my crossed-out name. Maya followed with a private Instagram campaign using hashtags that traveled fast in our hometown, just enough to make sure the right people saw it. The reaction was immediate. Comments poured in. Strangers sharing their own stories of being the family outsider, old neighbors tagging each other. Is this about the Morrisons? A former teacher even wrote, I always knew Rachel was the glue of that family. This is heartbreaking. By the second day, the story had reached beyond Portland. A local paper in my hometown ran it under a blunt headline. Anniversary celebration marred by family exclusion allegations. That's when my phone started ringing. First was Mom, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Rachel Elizabeth Morrison, what do you think you're doing? The entire country club is whispering. Are we having family problems, Mom? I asked evenly. Because I thought you made it clear I'm not family. Her breath hissed through the line. You are destroying us. No, Mom, I said. You did that yourselves. Dad called next, trying a softer approach. Sweetheart, let's be reasonable. This publicity, it's bad for everyone. Can't we work this out quietly? Quietly? I almost laughed. Like the way you crossed out my name in red ink? There was a long pause. You saw that. Yes, and now everyone else will too. By the third day, they had gone on offense. Friends messaged me saying my parents were telling people I'd crashed their dinner, that I'd been acting unstable for months. It stung more than I expected. Not because I cared what strangers thought, but because I knew my parents were willing to burn me to keep themselves clean. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if this backfires? What if they're right? What if I am the problem? But then my cousin Jennifer called, voice trembling. Rachel, I found the original guest lists in Mom's planner. Your name's crossed out over and over. And I heard Aunt Patricia laughing on the phone. She called it a brilliant trap. The knot of hurt in my chest turned to iron. My parents hadn't just excluded me. They'd planned my humiliation months in advance. And now they'd have to watch it unravel in public. The article spread faster than I imagined. By the end of the week, the private Instagram account had gone viral. Screenshots leaked. Former neighbors posted comments like, I saw Rachel turned away that night. It was cruel. Even the restaurant hostess, anonymously, confirmed the instructions to deny me entry. Then the story hit the regional magazine under an unmissable headline. Celebration or betrayal? The Morrison dinner scandal. That night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Melissa was first. She'd never cried in front of me before, but now her voice cracked like glass. Rachel, I'm sorry. I should have said something at the table. They told us you'd cause drama. I didn't want them turning on me. They already did, I said quietly. They just aimed first at me. They've been calling everyone, saying you're unstable, she whispered. But it's falling apart. People don't believe them anymore. I met Melissa in person the next morning, a quiet coffee shop far from prying eyes. She brought something I didn't expect. Copies of text messages from our parents. Proof they'd conspired to send Rachel the invite just to keep her quiet, then deny her at the door. My own sister slid her phone across the table and said, Tell the truth. All of it. I'll back you. By the third day, it wasn't just whispers. The charity board asked Mom to step down until the matter was resolved. Dad's business partners canceled meetings. Their perfect circle of friends cracked wide open. No one wanted to defend parents who humiliate their own child in public. The final confrontation came not online, but face to face. I was leaving my office when a black sedan pulled up. Mom stepped out, flawless as ever, but her eyes had that brittle shine of glass about to shatter. Dad followed, his voice low and urgent. "Rachel, this has gone far enough," he said, trying to sound calm. "You're ruining us." "No," I replied, steady. "You ruined yourselves." Mom's composure slipped for the first time. "Do you have any idea what this is doing to me? I can't even walk into the country club without people whispering." "That's your concern?" I asked. "Not that you invited me just to humiliate me? Not that you lied to everyone about what happened?" Dad reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Sweetheart, you don't understand." "No," I cut in. "I understand perfectly. You needed control. You wanted to remind me where I stand. But guess what? I don't stand under you anymore." Cars slowed on the street. Passers-by turned to watch. For once, they couldn't stage manage the audience. "I have every guest list you altered. Every message. And now Melissa does too. You can't bury this," I said. "The whole town knows what family means to you, and it isn't love." Mom's mouth opened, but no words came. Dad's face tightened, like he just realized for the first time in his life he wasn't holding all the cards. The silence that followed wasn't victory. It was something heavier, final, the sound of a mask breaking. 3 weeks later, the Morrison name no longer opened doors. Invitations stopped arriving. Mom was quietly removed from her charity board. Dad's phone calls to business partners went unanswered. In their world, silence was the ultimate verdict, and now it was theirs to bear. But the victory didn't feel the way I imagined. There was no rush of triumph. No cinematic music swelling as my parents' social throne crumbled. Just a steady, quiet certainty. I would never ask to sit at their table again. Melissa kept her word. She told the truth publicly, admitting they'd conspired to humiliate me, and in doing so, shattered years of carefully kept illusions. Connor called next, voice heavy, sober in a way I'd never heard. "I was awful to you," he admitted. "I went along because it was easy. Can we start over?" I didn't give easy answers. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. But I told him yes if he was willing to prove it. And then came the letter. A cream envelope, my grandmother's handwriting shaky but firm. "My dear Rachel, I am ashamed of how my son treated you. Please come to Florida for Christmas. In my house, family means love, not approval. You will always have a seat at my table." I read it 3 times, tears sliding down my face. Not from sadness, but from the strange relief of being wanted, without conditions or performance. The following weekend, I hosted my own dinner. Not in a glittering restaurant, but in my small downtown apartment. Friends crammed around my mismatched table, plates balanced on knees, wine glasses clinking above paper napkins. Maya was there. David was there. Even Jennifer, who'd risked her parents' wrath to help me, showed up grinning with dessert. It wasn't perfect. The chairs didn't match. The food came out late. But every laugh was real. Every voice wanted to be heard. I looked around that room and felt something I'd been chasing all my life. Belonging. Not because I'd earned it or begged for it, but because these people wanted me there. When my birthday rolled around 6 months later, I got a card with no return address. Just love, Mom and Dad in stiff handwriting. No apology. No acknowledgement. I slipped it into a charity donation box unopened. Not out of anger, but because I didn't need it anymore. I used to believe family was defined by blood, by last names etched in gold on dinner invitations. Now I know better. Family is the circle you choose, the people who keep a chair open even when space is tight, who don't measure your worth against their own reflection. I may have lost my parents that night, but I found something better. I found the courage to stop knocking on closed doors. And as I blew out the candles at my own crowded little table, I realized something simple and freeing. I was never missing a seat. I'd just been sitting at the wrong table all along.